Caroline Dowd-Higgins. Thank you for listening to Your Working Life, my podcast series featuring thought leaders in the career and personal growth arena. You spend a significant portion of your life at work, so my goal is to provide you with tools, inspiration, and resources so you can enjoy your career and love your life. And I am delighted to welcome my special guest to the show today, Emily Miethner. Emily, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you on the show, and I want to tell our listeners all about you. Emily Miethner is the founder and CEO of FindSpark and MCG Social. Emily has helped numerous young professionals in their careers through FindSpark, an online and in-person community dedicated to career success. MCG Social, the consulting branch of FindSpark, provides community management, conferences, and talks on personal branding, networking, and much more. Emily has also worked as an adjunct professor at the School of Visual Arts and LIM College, giving students guidance for their careers. She's an award-winning speaker and has been featured on the New York Times, Forbes, Fast Company, USA Today, and many more. Emily, so excited to have you on. We are kindred spirits and that we are passionate in helping people thrive in their careers. But let's go to the beginning. Tell me about FindSpark and how this all got started. I'm eager to hear about it.
Absolutely. Well, FindSpark and the inspiration behind it really started while I was still in college.
Okay.
So I was a graphic design major within the fine arts department, and I've always been a people person and just really enjoyed learning about other people and connecting people. And so that definitely made my my college career a little bit easier in the sense that I was able to get a lot of opportunities for internships and that sort of thing. And I realized that a lot of my peers did not have that same sort of mindset. And a lot of young people I found, not just within my college, but had a lot of negative and uncomfortable feelings when it came to networking.
Yeah.
And so what I really wanted to start was a community that focused on how important it is for everyone to create and maintain their own personal support network when it comes to their careers. So one of the first events that I produced that I like to say was kind of FindSpark in its earliest stages was a program at my college called Not All Artists Are Starving, a Night of Networking.
I love that. I love that. That's brilliant and resonated, I'm sure, with many, many people.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Hey, you mentioned something which I find really, really interesting in your materials. You talk about the transition from FindSpark from being what you call, and I quote, a side hustle to a 24/7 career, and what it's like from going to an employee to an owner. Would you tell us about that? Because I think the beauty of this career landscape is so many people are considering entrepreneurial ventures. And I myself am a hybrid employee. So I've got the day job, but I've also got a very vibrant entrepreneurial world.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think a lot of people get nervous or maybe they stop themselves before they even start some sort of side hustle or venture because they feel like they have to be all in or nothing. So I like to say, I'm definitely in the world of risk-averse people. So I didn't take a full-on plunge into FindSpark until I was really ready and in a lot of different ways, both financially, skills-wise, and really making sure that there was enough of a reason and a platform and a need to go full time. So I actually started my career in social media at a publishing company and really took as much out of that as I could in terms of the learning experience and mentors and being able to work on a lot of different projects. And after that, I realized, because I had this entrepreneurial itch, I wanted to be in an environment where I could learn more about what it was like to have your own business. So I transitioned into a community management role at a startup, and it was very, very different. So there was about 5 of us. and my boss was the CEO, and I pretty much did everything except, build the website and, of course, run the business and do the business development. So that was such an excellent opportunity to gain mentorship from the CEO of that company, and also gave me more flexibility in terms of being able to adjust my hours a little bit more in the startup world than, say, the corporate 9-to-5 publishing world. So I really, FindSpark was my hobby. That's what I spent all my time on before work, after work, on the weekends, and I really built it up to the point where I knew, and we were generating revenue pretty much from the beginning. So I knew that we had clients, we had community members who wanted more of us, wanted us to do more. And so I gave myself goals, where I said, okay, in the next 6 to 8 months, I'm going to transition part-time from that startup role, and went part-time, and then ultimately went full-time.
Wow. So you really had an incremental plan. That's great to hear. And thank you for being candid, because the entrepreneurial world is not for the meek of heart. It is intense. And as you know, especially in startup, you literally do everything. I get that you weren't the programmer for the website, but there is no such thing as a clearly defined job description.
Absolutely.
So I'd like to talk about your focus on helping young professionals. And the job landscape for millennials has changed so much. And I understand that FindSpark really caters to millennial young professionals. So what's changed for college students when it comes to finding those jobs and personal branding? How do you distinguish yourself in a very competitive market?
Absolutely. And we also focus on creative careers and creative industries, which is even more competitive, and especially in a market like New York City. So what we really emphasize to our FindSpark community members is you have to show employers, potential mentors, hiring managers, you have to be able to show them what you've accomplished. Yeah. And you have to be creative about how you do it, and you have to do it often. And it has to be more than just a bullet point on your resume, which of course is also important, but in a time where employers are looking you up on LinkedIn, they're Googling your name to hopefully find a website, we really want to empower people to have an understanding of all the different ways that you can show off your work and show off your personality, both online and in person, so that you can form relationships. And ultimately, what we always talk about is the goal of never being a job hunter or a job seeker, because of putting yourself out there consistently, the opportunities will actually come to you.
And I agree with you. If you're visible, if you can be found and seen and heard, opportunities will come for you. But it's all about how recognizable are you in that crowded landscape. So, Emily, I'd really love to tap your wisdom here, because I know so many of the listeners are thinking, okay, so what makes you stand out? What does the successful candidate do? But on the flip side, what's the biggest mistake? Because I think we can also avoid making those once we know what they are.
Absolutely. The biggest mistake I see young people make is saying that they will do anything, they will take any job in marketing or anything with fashion. It's so hard to help people when they don't have a focus. Mm-hmm. And using myself as an example, I have this enormous network and all these great employers we work with. And when somebody says something so vague like that, I know realistically, well, I can't send them everything, right? But if they can say, I have a background in e-commerce, so I really want to work at a mid-sized fashion startup, well, then I can think of a list of, 5 different companies that I can connect them to the, talent director at, right? So I think people are afraid to be more focused because they think they're narrowing their options, and they are. But what I believe is, what we've seen is that if you are more focused, that yes, your applications will take you longer, right? If you always are sending those custom application materials and cover letters, if you're being more focused about the way you're presenting yourself online, it might take you a little bit longer to land a job, or it might take you, or it might limit your options, but you're going to get further along in the process for options that, do make that are a good fit on both sides.
I agree. I agree. I also think you're going to be more gratified because you're pursuing something that presumably you have strengths and talents in and have an interest in. And when you say, I'll do just anything, you could land just that opportunity to do something that does not appeal to you.
Exactly.
So let's talk a little bit about networking. You and I know how essential it is to really build those relationships and go beyond the resume, whether it's the proverbial paper file or the LinkedIn profile. How do you approach networking, Emily? Because it is daunting to so many people, especially young professionals.
Absolutely. Well, I think it goes back to what we just spoke about, which is focus. And with focus, I think comes authenticity, right? So when you're focused in terms of the type of people you're connecting with, the stories you want to hear, what you want to learn about, you're going to be really genuinely passionate about those things. And so my take on networking is to be authentic and be genuinely interested in the people that you want to connect with and who you have the opportunity to connect with. So, for instance, I have a great example, and literally right before we started talking, this person kind of came up on my radar again. So I actually met a man named Nusrat Durrani back when I was about halfway through college, so many, many, many years ago, and we've actually stayed in touch since then. So this has been a very, very long relationship, and it's, people always ask me, well, how often do I follow up, or when do I follow up, and what do I say? And I like to use the method I call unforced follow-up, right? So you follow up when you have a true reason for following up, when you genuinely think of that person. So, for instance, with Nusrat, I know how interested he is in music, and so when I had internships in the music industry, I sent him physical packages of some of the CDs.
Yeah.
And so that was one example. I also attended an event where I knew he would be at, and then as I developed FindSpark, I would invite him to speak at FindSpark events, and I actually invited him, I think, over a period of about 4 years, invited him to speak 4 different times, and finally a couple of years ago he was able to speak. Of course, he's a very busy guy. He's actually the SVP of MTV World, so very, very busy, important person. And again, just always maintained the relationship because I've had real reasons to follow up. Just as another example that happened today, as I mentioned right before this, I have a friend who got into the Tribeca Film Festival, and I saw that he actually also produced a film that got into Tribeca Film Festival. So I told him about my friend's film, said he should check it out, and it turns out he's actually really interested in the topic of her film, and I literally just made an email intro for them at his request, between my friend, the director, and him. So, those are the sort of powerful things that happen naturally that enable you to maintain really strong relationships.
I love those examples, Emily, because for our audience, it's not just about asking for something. Networking is a two-way street, and you just described this beautiful development and stewardship of this relationship, sending a package with some great new CDs at that moment in time, for the company you were working with. It doesn't have to be, how can you help me? It can be, here's a bit of good news, or I was thinking of you. So thanks for giving people permission to network differently.
Right. Well, and one other recent example too, and a big thing that I talk about a lot is just having low expectations, in the sense of, with all of this networking, the fact of the matter is, a lot of people will not get back to you because we are all very busy, right?
And that's okay. Yeah.
Right. And it's okay. And so I think sending these notes and messages and that sort of thing, with the expectation that, there's a good chance they won't reply, but there's also a good chance they'll see it, right? And a recent example of that is one of my big tips is to a very practical, actionable tip is to make it so that people can see when you viewed their LinkedIn profile. So that is an option you can turn on or off. And, I believe that if you're looking at someone's LinkedIn profile, it's probably for a good reason.
Oh, yeah.
You met them at an event, you looked up somebody looking for a certain person you want to work with or you admire. So I think it's great to turn that on. And so recently I was looking up the profile of a young woman in our community who I know got an internship through our job board, so I could use her as a success story in one of my presentations. And right after I did that, she sent me a email with the subject line, "I see you," which of course I opened it. I thought, what is this? And it was just an email saying, "Hey, I noticed you looked at my LinkedIn profile. I wanted to send you an updated resume.
Nice,
Also
nice.
to let you know that I landed an internship through your job board. Thank you so much for the work
That's
you
awesome.
do with FindSpark. And
Yeah.
she wasn't asking for anything.
No,
She sent
no.
a nice short email. And, of course, I replied to say thanks. And now I use her as an example even more, right? And so this young woman's probably going to be on my radar for a very, very
Yes.
long time because of
Yes.
that one email.
That's a great story. That's a great story. So, good segue. Speaking of networking, tell me about the second annual Hustle Summit. Eager to hear about that. Already love the title.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so Hustle Summit is a new event that we launched just this summer of 2015, and really one of a big part of our mission is to make networking fun.
Yeah.
Right? We want to take the negativity out of networking. So we came up with a really great concept of putting super ambitious young professionals in a unique environment. So we've done this event at a venue called Irving Plaza in New York City, which is usually a concert venue. It has 3 levels and a stage and a lot of great space to move around and mix and mingle. So great venue, really ambitious young professionals, excellent, incredible employers, and things like a mentorship lounge to get pressure-free
Nice.
feedback on your materials. Just a lot of things to do to create a great environment for connecting. And leading up to the event, and this is something we do really with all our major events and in general, is we make sure that we give content to our attendees and community members that will help them prepare. So doing virtual workshops where they learn how to really up their personal branding game, learn how to practice their pitch, and it's been incredible. Like you said, we just had our second Hustle Summit installment just a few weeks ago, and another huge success in connecting top employers to really diverse, ambitious young professionals.
That's fantastic. So I really want to drill you on your expertise. Gosh, that sounded so harsh, drill you. I want to tap your wisdom, Emily, about the challenges of launching a startup. As I said, so many listeners are saying, gosh, I have this great idea for a service or a product, and it can be very daunting. So what do you know now that maybe you wish you knew when you were just starting out?
Sure. So the thing that I like to remind myself of often when, I have the stress that every startup or small business owner has, which is there are challenges in every job, no matter what, no matter you're working for yourself or you're working for a different company. So what I'm grateful for is the opportunity to, have challenges around an issue that I truly care about and I'm really passionate about. So, in terms of changes I would make, I don't think there are any huge things I would change, but one thing I would say is I would charge more, right? So I think a lot of small business owners and startups and people going out on their own very oftentimes undersell what they're doing because they think, well, I'm just starting off, or I'm just starting out, so I have to lowball myself, or I have to do this for free to get that first client and that sort of thing. And, I think devaluing yourself in that way is really not the best way to go. I think if you're confident in the skills that you have and that you have value to offer, then you have to be confident and firm about that.
I appreciate that. There's an old adage that if the theater charges too little for the ticket price, you don't think the show is very good, right? So it's the psychology of, value, monetize the fee based on the value that you bring. And you're right. Often as new entrepreneurs, we don't have that confidence in the market yet. So great advice. So what are you most proud of? You've accomplished so much and you've clearly done a lot as a young professional. What really makes you smile and think, gosh, I nailed it?
Well, I think it's just all the little ways and big ways too that we've impacted people's careers at FindSpark. I've just seen firsthand, how powerful relationships are and how much of a huge impact they have on people's happiness. And FindSpark has just had such a positive impact on countless careers. And for us, and this is something we talk about as well, is success is different for everyone, and it's really great to see people who found success through FindSpark, whether it's something like gaining the confidence that they need to pursue their next step because maybe they never, grew up in an environment where they had that support network. A lot of people have sort of come to us for what I would like to say permission to pursue something that, their college or their family or, whatever about their background has, previously said they couldn't do. And then, of course, to helping people land jobs and internships. I mean, we work with such amazing employers, Showtime, L'Oreal, HBO, BuzzFeed, New York Times, giving people access to these amazing brands and, at the same time, helping these companies to make sure that they are growing and cultivating a really diverse workforce is extremely, extremely satisfying.
So I know that there are people listening saying, okay, I've got this challenge, I've got this obstacle to overcome, and you and I have certainly had our share, as does all of humanity in the workforce. So what would you say to our listeners that are facing these tough challenges? How might they overcome them?
Sure. Well, I think one thing is to go to your network. So two things, starting with going to your network. I mean, I read something recently that I had never really heard before, and I think it's such a great point that being being overwhelmed and facing challenges actually helps people to create stronger networks because it gives people a reason to go to each other and to connect and support each other. So I think that's number one is not internalizing it and keeping it to yourself, and then number two is to remember to, especially for those who are considering entrepreneurship, you really have to flip that mental switch to, take in challenges as problems that need solutions and to enjoy the process of creating those solutions. I think that will, end up making your career much more enjoyable is seeing those things as, again, challenges as things that need solutions and knowing that, you do have the power within you to help create those solutions.
I love it. Focus on providing solutions. Excellent wisdom. Emily, what a joy to have you on. So excited to hear all of your great work. Tell us how we can follow you and certainly FindSpark online. How do we connect?
Absolutely. Well, so everyone should definitely head to findspark.com and sign up and become a member. It's free to join, and we have all sorts of really excellent resources, both digital, so great blog content. We host virtual events, and of course, in-person events as well. Everything from small workshops to large events like Hustle Summit. And for those of you who want to learn more about myself, you can just head to emilymiethner.com to learn more.
Emily, what a joy. Really excited to get to know you. Thank you for all the great work you do. I hope our paths cross again soon and hopefully in person next time. And I wish you continued success.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you for all the work you do as well.
Well, you got it, my dear. I've got your back. You've got mine. I appreciate you. And I want to thank all of our listeners for tuning into Your Working Life, where my goal is to help you design your career destiny so it doesn't happen by default. Career and life satisfaction is possible, and it's time to embrace what you love doing so you can do more of it. My show is now available on iTunes, YouTube, Podbean, and Stitcher. Hey, leave a comment. I always appreciate hearing from my listeners. I'm Caroline Dowd-Higgins. Take good care.